Today's topic: 5 reasons why you will love your Roth, mostly later in life. But I want to walk through 5 reasons that we see clients love Roth even more later. So maybe this is a reason why you should invest more into the Roth today. Maybe it's why you might do larger Roth conversions in those golden windows. We're not going to walk through calculations with this one. We're going to keep it high level, but 5 reasons why you will not only, what I would say, love your Roth today, but likely why you'll even love it more later in life, especially in that decumulation phase with some of the flexibility and the agileness that comes with having more Roth assets. So, 5 fun reasons why you're going to love your Roth even more coming up next. All right, before we get into the fun, quick favor to ask. You know how the videos work now, right? If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell icon, get a notification every time we release a new video. And if you're looking for a new financial advising team that loves Roths, just like this video, schedule a free icebreaker call right on our website at wealthkeel.com. Make sure it's a great fit for both of us, and it's a free introductory call. That's it. That's the pitch. All right, first up, the number one reason that we believe, WealthKeel, that you will enjoy more Roth assets is because of lower RMDs or possibly no RMDs. Now, RMDs, we kind of give them a hard time, but at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. And for most of you watching this video as high income professionals, ideally, RMDs do become a problem for you. Why? Because you were very efficient in your tax savings vehicles that gave you tax benefits. That is a win. That's a smart play. But that's why I always describe why Roth conversions are so important. But higher RMDs for a lot of you is more or less a thumbs up. Great job. You did as much as you could into those tax deferred assets, throughout your career. So we don't have a problem with RMDs. We just like to make sure you take full advantage of those RMDs down the line. So why do we say no or less RMDs? Well, remember, Roths do not have RMD requirements, really referring to the Roth IRA. So that is one that our clients love. They love not having to pull money out of their taxable accounts if they don't need it. And that's why Roth assets are very popular, because they are not subject to those RMDs. Now, if you're sitting here watching this in your accumulator years thinking, Chad, I'm going to take advantage of my tax-free assets, right? Or my tax-deferred assets here. You should continue to do that. But what I'd like to bring to your attention is when you do stop or slow your income much later down the line, right? Closer to retirement, or maybe a big decrease in your FTE, then you'll have an opportunity to do Roth conversions where you're going to convert on purpose and fill up lower tax brackets from an IRA to a Roth IRA. But Roth will avoid RMDs, and that will be something you truly love down the line, and the versatility that comes with that by having more Roth assets. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to go move everything Roth inside of your 401k, 457b, 403b. That's not the point of it. Now, this is why we do love backdoor Roths. We love the idea of being able to build up Roth assets while not taking away from any of the tax deferred options that you have, right? A backdoor Roth is a tax neutral event. So while I always describe backdoor Roths are not super sexy year in and year out, but when you do those for numerous decades, you get a pretty nice Roth bucket there, but you didn't waste any pre-tax dollars, at least as a high income household. So number one reason why you're going to love your Roth even more in the long run is because of no RMDs. Now, next on my list is, I labeled this one as lower IRMAA. Now, I was going to look up. I always forget what actually IRMAA stands for. But inside of your tax code, once you start Medicare, so IRMAA is only going to affect you when you are in the Medicare years. But it can be substantial. IRMAA is a 2-year look back period on, hey, if your income is above these thresholds, you have to pay more for Part B and Part D. And those numbers can go as high as, a couple $100s per month on top of your current premiums. So why do we note the Roth making this any better? Well, remember, the Roth is tax-free. So when you pull Roth dollars out, they do not show up as taxable income. What goes into the IRMAA calculation? Taxable income. So when you're pulling money out of your retirement accounts, yes, it's not earned income, but it's getting taxes or income. It will affect your IRMAA numbers. I should have pulled up my chart for you on this one. But essentially, once you break through these thresholds, you will have to pay more. And there's probably about 5 or 6 different tiers that will show up. And it's a cliff, right? So if the number says 250,000, but you went over to $250,001, you will go into that next tier. Now, if you had a unique event where your income was skyrocketed for a given year, there are you can essentially ask the IRS for essentially a pass, saying like, "Hey, this was not common." Usually, we'll have this with like clients that retire and they get like a large bonus, or maybe they got like sick payback or something unique. And you can challenge that per se. We've actually had clients have pretty good luck with that. But for any of you that are going to be in higher income brackets going forward, IRMAA can be an issue. So that's another one where Roth assets will benefit you. Another reason why Roth conversions, if you can sneak them in pre-65, can be helpful. But now if you are after 65 and that income dips up until you start RMDs, call it somewhere between 73 and 75, remember those Roth conversions do play a factor here. Now, some clients don't care. They'll say, "Hey, I'm okay paying those higher premiums if it allows me to get more into Roth." And I realize, that one given year that I'm going to pay more. But remember, Roth conversions will also affect IRMAA. Now, once you're into the Roth assets, that's where your IRMAA would be lower, right? Because you're not having to, anything that comes out of a Roth does not affect that number. So number 2 on our list on reasons why you'll love the Roth in the long run is, lower IRMAA numbers. Ideally, not having any IRMAA numbers, if possible, based on your total financial plan. All right, another reason why you will enjoy Roth assets depends on what side of this one you fall. But remember, when you lose a spouse, so you become a widower, your tax brackets will change. Right? Your tax brackets are going to shrink. This is a conversation that we have with clients, that it's kind of one of the downside to the tax codes where, while you're married, everything gets these nicer, wider tax brackets. But once your spouse does pass away, your tax brackets will get a lot tighter. Why does that come into the Roth conversation? What's the moral of the story today? Roth does not show up as taxable income, where let's just say everything's pre-tax dollars. Everything you're pulling out, whether that's at your own will or being forced out by RMDs, your tax brackets are essentially going to get, a lot more consolidated. So if you're still taking the same amount of RMDs, right, because even the inherited IRA is going to come over to your name as well. So this could be an issue. You're still getting forced to pull out that same amount of money, even if you don't need to utilize it. Most of our clients, the RMDs are so large, they end up just reinvesting it back into their taxable accounts. So that is something you certainly want to keep an eye on. This is another reason why Roth assets are very attractive. Honestly, it's one of the, I don't want to say selling points, but it's one of the selling points why Roth conversions are also pretty attractive, right? While both spouses are there together, in their 60s, lower 70s, ideally everyone's still going strong at this point, we can still do those conversions with larger tax brackets. So another reason why Roths will look more attractive in the long run is, unfortunately, we know there'll likely always be a separation there. Usually the females, right, are the women in our lives are the ones that are going to be the ones living longer. Doesn't always play that way, but just in terms of current statistics, that is a big help if you have more Roth assets in terms of those tax brackets. Number 4 on the list, I wrote this one as fewer 1099 issues in the future. And what I mean by that is, if you had to compare one versus the other, we're comparing Roth to a taxable account. The one downside to a taxable account is it's going to produce a 1099. Even when you try to build them as tax efficient as possible with ETFs and municipal bond funds, it's still going to produce a 1099. And if you're a high income professional, ideally your taxable account is your utility player, and it, perfect world, it's a very large number. That's why we love that. So if you could have more in Roth, that would be beneficial, right? Because what don't Roths issue? They don't issue 1099s. They're not taxable income. So the idea behind number 4 comes back to really my favorite term that's starting to build up inside of this video, is that Roth conversion idea. Because a lot of times what happens is when our clients do hit that sweet spot, from the day they retire, income drops significantly up until RMDs, call it 73 to 75, we start to do these Roth conversions. But a Roth conversion is creating a tax bill on purpose. But one idea that we use quite a bit is, well, how are you going to pay for that? Well, we're going to use their taxable account to pay for the Roth conversion. So when we do this and we create this tax bill, where do we pay for it? We pay for it out of the taxable account. So we're lowering the taxable account, lowering that future or current 1099 that's coming out of that for a more tax efficient Roth conversion. Now, you still want to be aware of, the tax swings and things of that and break even periods. But for the most part, just keeping it as simple as possible, Using that brokerage account to pay for those Roth conversions will give you fewer 1099 issues down the line because you have smaller taxable accounts and you then trading them in for those Roth assets. So Roth conversion can be a big win there. And truthfully, I know I noted this in one of the last points is, most of our clients, even when they get these larger RMDs, the ones that are being forced upon them, they don't use all of them. Usually we're sending some of it to Uncle Sam right out of Fidelity. And then the rest of it, it's coming to them and it sits there and they say, Chad, I don't need all this. How can we at least get some bang for our buck here? And it ends up going right back into a taxable account. So in that Roth conversion window, that sweet spot, as we like to call it, keep that in mind. That is a good way to build up your Roth assets and another reason why you'll be happier with those Roth assets in the long run. Last but not least, your kids will be happier. Or whoever's set to inherit your assets, whether that's your kids or significant other or whoever, they will be much happier with the Roth assets. Why, Chad? Why would they love the Roth assets? Because they're tax-free. Who would not love them? I always say, besides life insurance, Roth are the best assets to leave behind because Uncle Sam has been paid. The money will go to the individuals that are set to inherit those funds completely tax-free. And when you compare that to like IRA dollars, where pretty much those are now set to at least, to be forced upon the 10-year rule now, where everything has to be pulled out in 10 years, sometimes even shorter than that, depending on, where it's actually going. Roths are even more valuable for that reason. So, when we're meeting with clients, I'll usually say, we take somewhat of a unique approach, at least early on in retirement. I shouldn't say too unique, but we don't just say, hey, you should always wipe out your complete taxable account. We usually will try to find a blend between taxable and IRA assets. But the one thing we are very consistent on that usually sits on the back burner is those Roth assets. Maybe if we're trying to tiptoe around a certain number, an IRMAA number or something of that nature, the Roth will be utilized before. But for the most part, the Roth is on the back burner. We want that thing to still grow, take advantage of that tax compounding and also that tax-free number in the end. But with that, it likely becomes a large inheritance tool, and your kids will be very happy about that. Again, I say selling point. Clearly, it's not a selling point, but one of the other reasons why clients like Roth conversions is they are already using it as an inheritance tool. They're saying, hey, I want to pay the tax tool or the tax tab for my kids. I want them to have that completely tax-free. So that is another, selling point, pitch point in terms of, hey, this is why we like Roth conversions, because it's also setting up more of an inheritance tool. So number 5 on the list on 5 reasons why you love your Roth is your kids will thank you. Now remember, you will be gone at this point, but they'll be very happy that mom and dad were doing these steps. So number 5 on the list, your kids will thank you. And there you have it. 5 reasons why you'll love your Roth. Not only today, but into the very far future, because Roths add flexibility. They keep your plan agile and you don't pay Uncle Sam anything. That's why we love the Roth. So 5 topics, 5 ideas, 5 planning topics on why the Roth is probably even more valuable than what you're giving credit for today. As always, thanks for hanging out with me. Right around 15, maybe a little bit shorter on this one with some quick hitters today. But questions, comments, concerns, drop those below. I love getting to your questions. One of my favorite parts of creating this content is not only getting back to your questions, but then also taking your questions and creating even more content. So again, thanks for hanging out with me here. And as always, I will catch you on the next video.